Hello, everyone, and welcome to Evidence Mastery. I'm your host, Dr. Masoud Talusi, and I'm really glad you're here today as we dive into some of the most powerful tools shaping modern medical research.
So, what are we getting into today? We're going to take a deep look at an absolute giant in the world of health data, the UK's Clinical Practice Research Datalink, or as you'll hear me call it, Cprd. I mean, just think about it for a second. How can you really understand the true impact of a new medicine, not in a perfect lab, but out in the messy, real world with millions of different people? It's a huge challenge, right? Well, that is exactly why resources like Cprd are such a game changer. Okay, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll get a solid handle on what Cprd is. Then, we'll get into the real magic, the power of data linkage. After that, we'll tackle a tricky but vital issue called patient deduplication. And finally, we'll look at the incredible research impact this all has. All right, let's start at the very beginning. What exactly is the Cprd? And why is it so important for researchers all over the globe?
So, at its heart, Cprd is a research service run by the UK government. Its main job is to collect completely anonymized healthcare data from a huge network of general practitioner or GP practices. These are the frontline doctors in the UK's National Health Service, so this gives us an amazing picture of public health.
And let's talk about the scale here, because it is just mind-blowing. We're not talking about a few thousand patients. Over its lifetime, Cprd has collected data from 60 million different people. Yeah, 60 million. That's a staggering amount of information.
So where does all this data come from? It's pulled from a network of over 1,150 GP practices across the United Kingdom. To put that in perspective, that's more than 1 in every 10 GP offices in the entire country contributing to this single resource. It's just massive.
But you know what's just as important as the size? The time. Cprd has been gathering data for over 30 years. This means researchers can follow a patient's health journey for decades. It's not just a snapshot. It's like watching the whole movie of their health unfold. So when you put all of that together, the incredible scale, the huge network of doctors, and that long time frame, what do you get? You get a data set that is truly representative of the entire UK population. And that means the insights we find here aren't just small, niche discoveries. They reflect the health of a whole nation.
Now, that primary care data is an amazing foundation. But the real power, the real magic, gets unlocked when we start connecting it to other pieces of information. This process is called data linkage.
So record linkage is pretty much what it sounds like. We take a patient's anonymized record from their GP and we connect it or link it to other health datasets. This lets us follow what happens to that patient outside of their doctor's office, which gives us a much richer, more complete picture.
And what kind of things can we link to? Well, the possibilities are incredible. We're talking hospital records, data from the National Cancer Registry, mental health information, even death registrations, and data on things like socioeconomic status. You suddenly have this incredible 360-degree view of a patient's health journey.
And if you're wondering why this is so critical, here's a perfect example. A study by Harrett and colleagues found that if you only used a single data source to track heart attacks, you could actually miss up to half of all cases. 50%. That's a huge undercount. Linkage gets us so much closer to the true story.
Now, this power to combine all this data is fantastic, but it brings up a really important new challenge. If we aren't super careful, we could end up counting the same patient twice. And this is where we have to talk about patient deduplication. So here's the problem in a nutshell. Sometimes a single GP practice sends its data to more than one database. For example, they might contribute to Cprd and also to another big database called THIN. If you just pool those two together, you're going to have a bunch of duplicate patients, which can seriously skew your results. To solve this, researchers use a really careful step-by-step method. First, an algorithm flags potential matches by comparing basics like gender and birth year. Then, and this is the really meticulous part, people manually review things like prescription records to find identical entries. Once a duplicate is confirmed, it's simply removed from one of the datasets. And was all that painstaking work worth it? Oh, you bet. Take a look at this real-world study. By carefully combining and cleaning the data, researchers were able to increase their number of available patients by 30 to 60%. That's a massive boost to the statistical power of their research. Okay, so we've established that we have this huge, clean, interconnected dataset. But so what? What do we actually do with it? Let's talk about the incredible impact Cprd has had on real-world public health.
The impact has been nothing short of immense.
To date, research using Cprd data has resulted in over 2,000 peer-reviewed publications. Just think about that for a second. Every single one of those is a new piece of knowledge, a new insight built on this amazing resource.
And we're not talking about small, obscure studies either. This data has been used for landmark research on everything from drug and vaccine safety to understanding how diseases spread. It has directly informed the clinical guidelines that doctors use every single day, coming from major bodies like NICE in the UK.
So let's quickly recap the key takeaways. First, Cprd is a massive representative database of real-world UK health data. Second, linking that data creates a much more complete picture of a patient's journey. Third, rigorous methods like deduplication make sure that data is trustworthy. And finally, all this work has enabled thousands of studies that genuinely improve our health.
You know, the principles we've discussed today really get to the heart of modern medical evidence. If you find this stuff as fascinating as I do, I've actually written a book that goes much deeper into these topics called Real-World Data, Sources and Solutions.
It's going to be available on Amazon.com starting in December 2026, so I hope you'll keep an eye out for it. Well, that's all the time we have for today's Explainer. Thank you so much for joining me here on Evidence Mastery. I hope this gave you a clear look into the power of Cprd, and I look forward to seeing you next time.